Hi, good morning. Welcome to the May forecast, right? It is the 1st of May 2025 in Malaysia. Of course, it's the morning because it's a public holiday, it's Labor Day. So, as always, please do help me like and share. And of course, if you're early tuning in, I hope you're able to keep it here. And I'm also looking forward, hopefully, right, that if you are out, of course, in the western part of the world, you're able to, of course, tune in due to the time availability for you, right? So just going to give it a couple of minutes while we get warmed up before we get on with the full forecast of the May Metal Snake month, which is going to be a very, very important month, just like many other months within the year itself, right? So please do help me like and share. And of course, if you are here with me now and if you have not favorited my page, that would be really awesome. And then, of course, the best way to do this is to be a follower, right? So follow my page, my public figure page, Kong Yu, right? Because the more the merrier, and by linking yourself to it, by officially following it, then every time there's some updates, whether it is a posting or if it's a Facebook Live like this, or if it's my Reels, which I've been trying to, of course, put out more in terms of useful bite-sized information, right? From all sorts of things, right? All the way from the classic subjects that we do, the feng shui aspect, the party aspect, dealing, of course, with the year, that, of course, generally the season is more in the first beginning parts of the year. But throughout the year, I'll endeavor to share with you these bite-sized nuggets, pieces of information through these reels. So, of course, in order for you to get notified of these reels, it would be good if you are officially following the page. So if you can follow, if you have not done that yet, that would be really, really awesome. Yeah. So meanwhile, we're going to get started soon, but like I said, if you're here on board, I hope you're able to tune in to the full forecast because your energy live with me actually makes a very big difference, whether it is a Facebook Live like this or even, of course, with our previews, our workshops, and our official classes as well. Yeah. So happy Labor Day, happy May. It is May, okay? If you know, you know. It is something that always is very exciting when we come from April, from the meme perspective. And of course, if you grew up with the band In Sync, the boy band In Sync, one of the most popular in the, I think it was the 90s and 2000s, then you know what I mean, right? Because May has definitely crept up on all of us. And it has actually, in fact, um, I don't know if Nancy is watching this. I know we were tentatively planning our vocal coaching session for today, but so sorry because it slipped my mind. And then as I was preparing to this Facebook Live, also preparing to wrap up the month of April, looking forward to May with all sorts of forecasts because there's the FB Live, this version of the forecast. And then there's also, of course, the forecast that comes with our written newsletter. And then I suddenly recall, oh, yes, we're supposed to do a session today, but of course we did not pre-coordinate it, right? So sorry about that, Nancy. So we'll just have to catch back up on that. And that is something as well that if you are curious to do, if you've been watching and following the page, I've dropped a few reels, a couple of reels in the past week or so, right? Talking about how we can just very simply use our breath, right? Connect constantly with it or remind ourselves to connect back to our breathing by being purposeful about it. So number one, of course, being conscious about it. Number two, of course, to breathe purposefully. And just by doing that, we align back with our internal energy, right? Which is a very simple but super effective way to just connect back to us. Because when we're outside and we're running tasks, we're in our day-to-day jobs and lives, we often forget to breathe properly. So when we lose our connection to our breath, we also lose connection to our internal self, our heart, our overall internal energy, that it can be out of sync a lot of times, right? In a busy day or in a standard day for the average modern urbanized human being, especially. So, one quick tip is just to breathe properly and be conscious about the breath. And then, of course, to breathe deep and all that, to slow it down so that we can better connect. So, that reel, right, was out about probably a week plus ago, 2 weeks ago. And then I've also dropped another one on the benefits of humming to connect. Yeah. So, more on that to share. So if you're curious about how, of course, your internal vibration can be enhanced, right? And most of all, and best of all, is that how do you better vocalize, which of course can help you in so many different ways in terms of being able to speak better. And more importantly, is generally be able to connect a lot better with your own internal energy, right? So of course our voice is the most active and most powerful and most obvious, right, vibration amongst our entire body. So that's why being cognizant of it and then learning how to use it is actually very, very useful for you to overall tune, right, your internal energy alignment, amongst many other ways. Yeah. So a quick good morning to Nophiros, right, and also to whoever who is there, right. If you like to drop a greeting, and as always, if you have a comment, please do drop a comment there. Your observation, how the year has been so far, any sort of opinion, right, is much welcome and much appreciated as well. So you can either drop it on the stream that's going through on Jessie's main page, right, and also the stream that is going on my page as well, right, which is basically Kong Yu. So do share any comments and questions there as well. So we're going to get started with the forecast now, right? And if you've just joined, right, please do help me like and share this feed. And then, of course, if you can favorite and also be following officially my page, Kong Yu, Kong, the public figure one, that will be really appreciated, okay? So we're going to dive in now to the May forecast, which I am finally able to do on time for you, right? So yes, that was one of my task and goals, which is basically to do it in time before the month starts. So we're actually today, May 1st, doing this forecast while, of course, the official metal snake month transitions on the 5th of May up to about June 5th. So that's about a month there. So it's going to be a very interesting month. And the thing about the May energies is that it's pretty much crept up on us already, because when we went through the major, I would say 2/3 of the previous month, the very, very special Metal Dragon month, and once we cross into 2/3 of it, then already the energy starts to really transit into what the metal snake is about, right? What the core energies are basically giving us an opportunity to ground to it, which I'll talk about more, right? So a quick hello there to Joanna, right? As well as Rika and Yvonne. Hi, good morning, Yvonne. And whoever else that's in this time zone, right? And then, of course, if you're watching from out in the West, of course, do drop your hellos as well, okay? So let's bring out the material and we will get started right now, right, on the forecast. So the thing about the snake is a couple of things. Number one, of course, as a seasonality month, it is the first month of summer, right? Officially summer season. Now, of course, if you're new to metaphysics, you may have this question as to, okay, how do you define summer, right? If I'm living in the southern hemisphere, for example, right, do I follow still basically summer as to like at the end of the year during the winter of the northern hemisphere, or how? So typically, of course, when we look into metaphysical energies, right, the energies that we use in the Chinese five arts, in Chinese metaphysics overall, so the absolute, right, directions are the key. So it does not matter whether you're in the southern hemisphere, south is south and north is north. So that's why when it comes to the term summer, right, so we predicate it, we base it on northern hemisphere summer in terms of the timing of the year, which is in the middle of the year. Whereas fire chi will start to basically get enhanced and magnify and grow, and of course will peak in the June and July, or the horse and the goat months, right? So that's how we would define it overall, regardless, right, or whether you are in which hemisphere. So remember, the weather overall in terms of its temperature, right, in terms of its seasonality, is not the benchmark when it comes to how we define the overall chi transformation throughout the annual year. So back to the snake month, May officially is the first month of the summer season. But in this case, right, when it comes to the full pillar of it, it is interesting because we have, in a way, contrasting elements, right? Clashing elements between the main chi, right, which is anchored down by the animal sign, which is placement on the month of the year. So in this case, of course, summer equals fire, right? So it is paired with contrasting elements on top. So for example, in May, it is paired with metal, right? Yin metal, sin metal is the heavenly stem on top of the snake monthly branch or animal sign, monthly animal sign. So it is, of course, extending the pattern of countering or clashing energies. Then, of course, if we look forward into June and July, you see the similar trend, right? So in June, it's a nice counter. It's not really, to me, I think it's a very exciting balance of water and fire, in June especially, right? Especially when it's fully activated, moving from the second half, the second 24 solar term of the June horse month itself. More on that when we approach. And I will also share a little bit about this because I like to transition the month, right? Of course, always in correlation with the year. How does the month stack up with the year? And I like to see it as a flow of energy, which is how I would encourage you to do so as well. Never see each month or even each year in a silo, right? This year is like that, the next year is like that, and then the following. Similar with months, right? We have to follow the flow of it if you really want to maximize, right, the usage of metaphysics overall, which I'm sure many of our followers prefer to do that compared to just taking shortcuts, right, and getting like information out there and taking information just used in bits and pieces which don't really correlate to a overall cohesive whole. So one way to make the usage of metaphysics more cohesive for you and hence much more effective is to follow the transitions, right, and flow with it, right, just like what we're doing with this monthly forecast as well. So I was saying, looking ahead, right, yes, June is a so-called clash between water and fire, but therein lies the potential excitement as well, right? Because they are in opposite complementary balancing. Let's say you were to talk about water being here and fire being here, and then so on and so forth, like wood and metal, for example, right? So these two are always in a balance if it is harmonious, if it's in the balanced state, right? They are only clashing in one layer of the energy, but when we come to an equilibrium, that's when they are both maximized. So that's what I feel the exciting potential of, especially the second half of June, the horse month lies. Whereas in July, yes, there's going to be a little bit more of stumbles, blockages, and so on, right? But it is also very exciting if we know how to manage the energies, especially from June and in relation to that, prior to that, okay? So on the surface, metal snake, of course, is clashing because it's metal against fire, right? But in this case, delving deeper into the animal sign itself, right? So of course, like I said, yin metal on top, then snake at the bottom. Now snake, of course, is very interesting because it's the same as the year. So now we have a doubling of the Tai Sui energy, or at least a clear overlap of it. Now it's not a Fu Yin. Fu Yin means that it's not exactly the same pillar, right? And that's also very interesting. If it's a Fu Yin case, right, of the month being exactly the same as the year, but it's not. In fact, it is countering or clashing on top. So we'll just skip to that in a moment. But the last point here is that the snake being the first month of the summer season, just like all first months of any season, right? So that means the animal signs are the pig, tiger, and also the monkey, right? It is a growth animal sign. It's when it's supposed to be off the blocks, right? So on your mark, get set, go. So the go is the first month of every season. So that's why it's about really just throwing and going out there and then just spreading energy, like, right? The growth animal signs, the first of every season, is about that because we want to start off the gate with the season strength of the qi. In this case, it's fire, right? And then we just want to push it through so that it will mature in the peak, the middle month, right? So that's why it's also known as a sky horse, and overall it denotes growth, rapid advancement. And then, of course, with rapid advancement and growth, it's instability. But when we look at that in the positive sense, it is basically movement. It is basically travel, changes, and so on. So that's why the snake month is, yes, a change-related month, just like the entire year, right? So I know when I remind ourselves of this, a lot of times it is like, oh, okay, can you just give us the good stuff? Can you just tell us how to maximize it and how it will guide us to close better sales, to close deals, to get things our way, right? So most of the human frequency is anchored towards that, right? What's in it for me? YFM, right? But I urge you, again, as another reminder here, like I have been doing for the past 1.5 years, right? Take the snake year, just like the dragon year, as a real period for final adjustment for the rest of how you want to path your way forward for period 9. Because it's the second year of period 9, we've got 18 more to go, and don't be so impatient. Please be more patient and please use all of these energies from two perspectives. I keep getting this message, right? Use the perspective yes, creating outer growth and advancement to get to where you want to go. Second of all, the more important one is on the same instance, at the same time, concurrently, you need to always have space to slow down and to tune in internally and to really adjust, fix what needs to be, right? So that then when you fix that, you heal that energy, then you can transmute it so that your energy becomes more overall, right? So that's the beauty of the power of the portal animal signs, dragon, and also the snake. So if you've been following my forecast regularly, so we've been emphasizing it all this past couple of months, right? Because of course we are now well into the snake year, and as we continue the rest of the snake year, we will still have this opportunity. In fact, right, especially when we get to the last quarter of 2025, October, November, and also January, before the exciting fire really kicks in from February onwards for the horse year, we have this opportunity to make those really final tweaks to our energy so that we can free it up, we can transmute, heal as much as we can so that we have more going for us from 2026 onwards. So that's very, very important, right, for the remainder of the snake year itself. Now, of course, this cusp of dragon month into snake, so last month, April into May, is another important cusp. We've covered that already, right? Just like whatever that we initiated from last year. But now this is going to be another point where we basically will have the opportunity to work with both the energies, right? The outer energies of creation, but also very important, right? Everyone who's with me on board right now and watching this post live as a replay, make those adjustments, right? So don't just be carried away with what you want to achieve outwardly, right? So snake month, doubling snake year is very powerful as an entryway for the adjustment period for the rest of the year. Okay, so this is of course just a reminder of the year itself, because I always stack the month against the year and you get a clearer picture of the month's energy and then how it evolves and transitions for the rest of the year itself, right? So of course, if you are new to my monthly forecast, so to share this with you as well. So this is the wood snake year, as you already know. We've had it for many months already, right? But the stem, okay, which is the yin wood that's on top. Last year, progressing from yang wood, xia, and now, of course, this year into yi wood, next year into ping fire. Now, that is, of course, the heaven's gift, right? Heaven is directly connecting to us through this energy of yin wood for the year. So the shortcut is to maximize it, right? Yi wood is, of course, about diversification, it's about sideways growth, it's about being able to be very creative and be very resourceful in terms of getting things done, in terms of solving problems, in terms of growth overall. Okay, so that's the theme of the year, Yi Wood. So that's very important to honor it, because that's what the heavens guiding us and also giving us as a gift, regardless of how your personal day master and your overall party chart reacts to it. So if you want a shortcut, that is it. It's that simple when it comes to the heavenly stems, right? Of course, with the earthly branch, it's where it contains the anchor chi of our human soul in personalized terms. For you, of course, it will be your chart in relation to the cycles there, in relation to the outward cycles that we all go through, including the year itself, right? So that is slightly more complicated, it's more challenging, because humans are self-punishing in terms of overcomplicating things, right? So that's why the biggest breakthrough we can do is the responsibility and the ownership of the responsibility as brought in by the snake energy overall, which is mainly containing yang fire, which is a big part of the energy, how to say, connections and portals. It's because ping fire reacts in very interesting ways with a lot of the other elements. The snake animal sign reacts in very unique ways with the other animal signs. So that's why it is very powerful that way, right? So of course, inside the ping fire, or rather the snake animal sign, also contains, very importantly, right? Okay, the one that is there and just to in a way get it out of the way, right, is Wu Earth, Yang Earth, right? Because all the animal signs mostly contain it from the perspective of the growth animal signs, except the pig. But okay, it's a residual energy overall, right? Generally of the first month of every season, carried from the previous season. So that's the word there. Now, Geng metal is key. Geng metal being hidden in the snake, and also because the snake carries Geng as a growth. yang metal is a growth in the snake. That is very, very important to take note of. That's why another deeper layer of emphasis, especially if you follow our workshops, if you follow our the paid classes, for example, like Manifest Your Life, right? We delve into the depths of that Keng metal because it's significant. First of all, if you know from our annual talk, Jessie's presentation, Keng metal is very important for 2025 overall. And the fact that it is appearing with the snake is also a gift, right? So I hope you've been able to maximize it, right? So then we will get deeper into how the transition of the energies go, right? So, but before that, so a couple comments here. So Rika says, personally, the year has brought a lot of celebration, so that's great. So remember to look into not just that aspect, which is going great, so that's wonderful, but also on the deeper level of what else can you do to look deeper so that you can really look into the areas where there's still maybe lingering stagnation, right? Possibly linked to like inner child wounds and so on, right? And really address those so that you can heal and transmute those energies. Because once you do that, it adds on more, right? That you can achieve overall, yeah? So, and then of course, Rika also has this follow-up question, right? Does the sin on top combines with Ping in the snake? Now, yes, in a way, right? It can do that, but more importantly, I would just say in a nutshell, it is connected. It is deeply connected, right? You may not say that it will combine, it will fall through, right? Because sin metals on top and Ping fire of the snake, it's now in not only in a month, but it's also in the year, right? So there's a strong connection, right? So we can read it best that way as opposed to trying to figure out what happens to it, right, in a particular chart or whatever. So there's a strong connection for sure, okay? And then, of course, Jessie there drops a little hello. A blessed May morning, yes. Can't believe May 1st, it's just like, boom, here we go, right? It is already May. Alicia is also there. Hi, Alicia, hope you're having a wonderful year so far, okay? So if you've just joined us, now is a good time for me to also encourage you to like and share and also to officially follow my public figure page, Kong Yu. Okay, if you can do that, that'll be really awesome, yeah? So the interesting thing about the snake month, of course, is it doubles the snake year. And at the same time, okay, it is the snake month, which is supposed to enter, right? Kickstart, remember? It's a growth animal sign of fire. So it's supposed to really whoosh, like, and allow and magnify and push out a lot of fire energy leading to June, right? So what is fire energy all about? Fire energy, of course, is the key energy, right, which is very important. In fact, I would say it's number one, followed by water, number two. It is the agent, the only element, right, of the 5 elements. It is transformative. It is able to shape the other 4 elements, shape them and transform it, right? None of the other elements is able to do. The other elements are able to balance, they're able to control and cut and so on, but fire is the only one that can change the shape of any of the other 4. So normally it's the process of what? Transformation. It's the process of creating magic, like Jessie always says, right? Alchemy, that you want to shift something, right? From a reality of A to a reality of B, you need fire energy to shift that, to combust it, burn it away, and transform it so that it has a chance to grow into the new, right? So it could be a reality, it could be a completion and success of a project, it could be to shift someone's position, to change their opinion, and so on, right? Because fire is related to influence, a transformation, and also selling. So that's what we're leading to and also emphasizing in summer, which is just 3 months to come, right? But here we have suddenly the metal sin. Now, sin metal is, in a nutshell, it's the finished product, right? It's the polished product, the polished gemstone, the diamond, right? The completion, the results. And it is the purest form of it, right? Before it reshapes itself back with water energy, metal produces water, right? And last month we went from Keng metal, Yang metal. Now we're shifting, of course, just like the normal cycles of the pure elements to Yin metal. But here it is appearing with the entryway into the so-called alchemy and transformation. So we're in a way leading up to the destruction of the sin metal, right? In a sense. But why is it appearing now? So that's very important. And then, of course, the other thing is that, right, while Keng metal, okay, when we talk about that, is actually in the snake itself, right? Which is in the month itself as well, but in this case, it's the annual one. Now, that Keng metal is a very key feature of the energy of the year, right? And this is, of course, the state of growth when we talk about Keng metal. But when we talk about Yin metal, it is almost the opposite, right? It is in the death in snake, right? Sin metal is in the death in the snake month, and of course in the death of the snake year as well. Now, this is a phase of qi, right? That is the term here. So that means there's something dying, right, in terms of the qi. That is something that is going, that is, with every death comes a rebirth. So there's something that needs to be let go of so that something anew can arise. So that's why if you follow the other layers of it, the lunar cycle, for example, right, you see several themes combining, right, which also explain further with the depths of planetary transits, the movement of the planets. Where are they now in the universe in relation to us watching from planet Earth, right? So we are growing the Keng metal from the snake year, but yet at the same time, the Sin metal is also undergoing a death. Right now, of course, it's very complicated and it's very exciting, the layers of how to unravel this. So I'm still, of course, doing some pondering over it. I'm doing the research over it and all that. But it is very multi-layered and very, very deep. So that's why we have a couple of things going on, right? But before we go into that, okay, I want to walk us through the past few months because it's very important to put it into perspective and context. Because the key message that keeps coming back to me is that there is both the yang and the yin. Of course, it is always that, right? The emphasis of the outer and then the inner. The emphasis of the solar and then also the emphasis of the lunar, right? And in working with these both combined energies is really the key to unlock the best, maximum, most potential, the most energy. So that's why when we do that, it is very, very effective. And we are blessed because many of our followers believe in that, believe in at least some degree of inner work, even though we are all generally lazy with inner work. So always remind ourselves that, look, we have to take some time out, we have to do the tough shit, we have to go through the harder processes, the one that does not immediately yield results, that is, how to say, very tangible. Now, if you do inner work, every session will yield some results, for sure, right? So always have to put that into perspective, right? Because it's not immediately going to be an outward, tangible result that is measured in terms of what? Closing things, getting things, deals closed our way, right? Be able to persuade someone to come to our position and be able to grow one offshoot of a business and so on, right? Because a lot of times we will get caught up in all of that in terms of measuring how much growth that we have gone, how much progress we have made, how effective was my Bazi consult and taking action following through the consultation, how effective was the feng shui of a new place that I've transitioned myself to, how effective is my tapping or dynamic chi, dynamic feng shui, the external vibrant locations, how effective is my feng shui activation. A lot of times we want to see something that is measurable in terms of dollars, cents, in terms of success, in terms of closing deals, in terms of getting things the way that we want, right? But a lot of times it is not about that direct. It is about getting you to the next point of where you need to go, right? So remember that, keep that in mind every time you start to feel a little bit frustrated, a little bit, questioning, right? Why is this not working for me, or why am I being, in a way, in a disadvantaged position and so on? Because our human ego can lead us to those pitfalls a lot, right? So keep that in mind in terms of using metaphysics overall. Yeah. Quick hellos there, Gerald. Hi, May, Lori from Japan. Thanks for watching and joining in. Pek Chen, morning to you, and of course Kurosaki as well. Okay. So now back. When we rewind back, right? Because you have to see the transition here. Now, the first one, of course, is largely out of the way, but because it's related to the theme of the year. In March, we have the anchor of the rabbit month. The anchor of the rabbit month, which is purely containing Yi wood, Yin wood, is the mirror, or is the anchor, shall we say, the battery power to the growth energy that we're supposed to maximize in terms of the Yin wood growth, right? So the energy of heaven. So, and this is battery powered, it is anchored, it is, the energy is grounded during March. So in March is when we're supposed to tap into that, right? Whatever it means to you, because remember, we are maximizing Yi Wood, because it's the universal, the heavenly energy stem, which is here for all our good, no matter what process it makes us go through, and no matter how things feel. right? Whether it's like very smooth, exciting, or very irritating or challenging, right? It doesn't matter, because our goal here as human beings is to use the blessings of this Yi Wood from the universe and maximize it. Maximize everything. So next year, maximize Ping fire, Yang fire, and so on and so forth, right? So this one started in March. So whatever occurrences in March, whatever back to fundamentals and whatever else that you are called back to if you are open energetically, right? It is here to help you maximize the growth of the Yi Wood. Okay, that is important. Then it takes a very interesting transition, because then the most important element for 2025, which is Geng metal, which is the growth which is hiding in the snake, comes up and reveals itself on the month of the dragon, right? Metal dragon, Yang metal over dragon. So when this comes up, it forms a combination to the year. The year stem, which is basically yin wood, right? So what is this? Something comes out to give you an overall framework and structure to the growth of diversification or the creative growth and so on and so forth, right? So of course, you will see this mirrored, and you would have seen it mirrored, right? All of this in everywhere. Now, of course, when it comes to world events and world stage, right? The tariffs that President Donald Trump of the US first came out to impose, right? So it's time to that as well. So there's someone coming out to try to give a framework to things, right? Now, of course, how effective or how welcome, how sensical is this framework is a different question, right? But because the energy affects all of us, right? No matter who, but in very different ways, because you are vibrating your own energy, right? So I'm vibrating the energy of Tokong Yu and so on, right? And then you are vibrating, for example, Lori Takashi, right? From Japan, you have your own vibration there and your own life that's created and so on and so forth, isn't it? So it is going to affect you differently than Trump, correct? But when we are cognizant of this, right, then we are able to use this energy, hopefully, right? Because we're cognizant of it and we follow the metaphysical changes and the growth of energies, shifts and the ebbs and the flows throughout the year, then you maximize it to your life, to your situation, your reality, right? So that's why April, because of this, and because it's also related to the transition of dragon snake, right? This is, of course, transiting from the month of transiting into the dragon month. This is rewind back 1 month lah. Transiting, you're using the dragon month in the snake year, right? That's why it's also the portal crossing moment, right? Which was April, and April was a very powerful month. Now it's behind us already, right? Because now that pretty much the metal snake energy are here lah, even earlier lah, as of today, May the 1st. So that is what it's all about, right? In terms of April. So then now come May. Now we have a doubling of the snake, and then at the same time, the top is now in a counter, in a clashing position, in a balance between sin metal and also yi wood, right? So very natural transition, isn't it? So first, there's a framework that is given, and when we use it personally as in a positive way, it means that our creative endeavors, what we want to really grow and how we want to grow, not from so much of a fundamental way, right? Fundamental way, that means that if your core skill is in this skill of A, right? That is what you're supposed to really develop last year in 2024, right? So now it's not so much the core pillar or the core energy itself, right? Which is more jiawood, but it's more the sideways. What can I do to make it even better, to complement it? In some ways, it's the beautification, how it looks. In some ways, it's the marketing. In some ways, it is the spreading beyond your like, for example, right? The core market is here, and then you want to spread out so that you are like spreading out and wanting to dominate, right? With the goal of dominating the lateral outer greater markets as well. So that's all the energy of Yi Wood, right? Then we come from April, which is about giving a structure and framework so that it is more proper in a way. It has a longer lasting shelf life, right? Because Yi Wood can be very too fickle, right? All over the place and continuously changing, but there's no long-term shelf life to it. So Geng can help us do that. But now Sin is going to help us cut, right? For that's from using it from a positive perspective. So now we're trimming the growth, right? We are halting it a little bit, right? We are maybe cutting the branch so that it can spread to a different corner, right? Or grow in a different direction. So that's what we're doing in the scissors, because sin is basically like scissors, right? So that's what we're doing with if we want to apply the energies of the metal snake, month, the May month itself, in a useful way. So see how that applies to you in your case, in your life, whatever it is that you're shaping, especially with the core energies of restarts, new ways of honoring our soul, honoring our real path forward, right? Because we're talking about our spirituality overall, right? But as I've been saying, spirituality is not just about, being, how to say, like a very person, right? It's about like just meditating all the time, right? Because the spirit is beyond that. It is about exploration. It's about learning. It's about traveling. It's about, I have done this in my first 40 years of my life. Now I'm going to do this, which is something different. That could be a soul calling. It could be a life change, a spirit change, a soul calling that is very vastly different from your previous life, right? And so on. So that's about it. And everybody will have a different direction in terms of that. So that's why, with the excitement of the soul rebirth process, especially in this past couple of months leading into now May, right? That's the overall underlying theme when we talk about soul astrology overall, right? But remember, when I say and I use the term spirituality, it's being spiritual, right? It is not about being more holy or more meditative or whatever. It's about basically honoring where your spirit and hence your soul wants to go. And it's different things for different souls. That's simple as that. All right, so it's a very exciting period, right? Also in a nutshell. So when we talk about May, because the anchoring the snake energy in a way like doubling it, right? So that's why we also have to match it to the top, which is about sin metal, which developed from gung metal, right? And how it's able to then trim and give us that opportunity to do so, right? To adjust. So remember, everything has outward and inward. So we see sin metal now appearing suddenly at the start of summer, where it's supposed to, in a way, if you leave it up there, it will be, high chance of it being melted when it comes into the core energy of fire, right? So, and that tells me two things, okay? And especially continuing from the energies of April. Okay, so the April forecast, by the way, is going to be there only for a few more days, because I did it, I think, in about April 5th or 6th, right? So, and now Facebook has a shelf life of only 1 month for their Facebook lives, for our Facebook lives. So if you have time and you have not viewed the April forecast, go and view it, because I explain in detail about how important is this crossing of April into May, and at the same time, of course, in the relationship between the dragon and the snake. So that's that, right? Because it's very, very important for us to know that, to maximize how to use May's energy, for example, right? So there's two levels in it, in the summary. There is the outward energy that tells us, right, with the seed in April itself, right? This is the current reality. So with the current reality, you have to match. This is the reality that I want more of, that I am joyful with, that excites me, that is my soul calling and where my spirit wants to go further in. Then there's also the reality, which is the opposite, that shows you clearly not, right? So because metal is just metal, metal is obvious, metal is the result, and with gung metal last month, it is the rough kind of result. You can just summarize it anyway. With yin metal is the final essence, the distilled final scorecard and the lessons learned, the wisdom supposedly gained, right? And you will get that, right, leading into, of course, into the month itself. And same thing, right? So with the results, lessons, essence, or karma, any of those, right, which fits the bill, then we have an opportunity to reshape forward development, first going into the combustion of summer, June and July especially, right? But at the same time, right, be cognizant that this same sin metal that has appeared as a final result, lessons or karma, is also potentially like so-called negative, right? That means it's where you have ripened the seeds of your karma in an unfavorable way, right? So this again can be a myriad, right? It could be a relationship that through the dynamics of it, there's a certain result that we have to face now. It could be a positive seed that you have sown and now it's ripened into initial success, initial results. So with that, you reshape, use that to match how you can shape the growth forward for the rest of the year. Okay, so that's the positive, the plus part. Then the so-called negative part. Okay, remember, I'm just using this in context of comparison, right? Because when we handle the negative correctly, then we are using the energies in a more efficient way. And then we're also able to heal and transmute it so that we take in the energy and then it becomes a part of our overall total, right? So that part can, if you're not careful, limit your growth, right? That means whatever that is transpired and resulted in a less favorable or unfavorable or negative result or karma at the moment, right? Now, if you're not careful, that could also block and limit growth. It can also cut eat wood, which in a negative sense, unfavorable sense. So you got to watch out for it because we always coexist in these two dimensions, one, right? Where our awareness is mostly in the yang dimension and unfortunately not so much in the yin. So pay more attention to that because it can limit growth in a negative way. That means you're just cutting away the eat wood unbeknownst due to your own sort of like an inability to transmute your lessons. That means you have a lesson that's clearly there. Let's talk about it in the unfavorable way, right? It's showing you if you continue to be like this, you will cut your own limit, you will limit your own self, you cut your own growth for the rest of the year, right? So that's what we're called to look at. Of course, on the positive side, we have a result or wisdom gain, lesson learned that can help us better shape. So then in that case, we will be cutting the hair of the yeet wood in a more positive way, right? In a more favorable way. Because like it or not, sin and yi is in that position, right? In a balanced position. But because yi wood is the theme of the year that's appeared ever since last November, right? And defining the Tai Sui of 2025, it's been there all this time. Suddenly the scissors come out. That's the interaction, right? Now the trimming agent comes out. So it's less of a balance, it's more of a trim. Okay? So that's how, right, to use the core energies of the snake. So I hope you understand what I mean, right? And be able to use the energy as positive as you can. Okay, so now we layer on. Now, what does Western astrology? I'm using this not to read charts, but in understanding the additional layers based on where the planets are, because it tells us a big part of the story as well, right? So in a nutshell, a lot of the smaller orbit planets, right? Mercury, Venus, and Jupiter is like the middle point okay, of it, which is related to Tai Sui as well. All of this is very fresh and optimistic. Mercury is our day-to-day communication, our linkage energy, right, between two energy bodies. Then Venus, of course, is the depth of our relationship, especially in interpersonal, right? But it can be anything like that, but interpersonal is the one that's easier to relate to, and it's always a reflection of ourselves. How we feel about ourselves truly, subconsciously and unconsciously, is mirrored in the way that we see how people treat us, the way that we see how people are. So Venus is all about that, and of course Jupiter is the amplification energy, or which is related to Tai Sui, right? The snake itself, or when we correlate back to our Chinese astrology, right? So all of this is anchored down in a nutshell in the earlier signs, right? Earlier signs means, for example, like for us in Chinese astrology, be tiger, rabbit, dragon, right? And so in Western, it will be Aries, Taurus, Gemini. So these are fresh and exciting, which means that in our day-to-day type of environment, things are very active and very moving and very fluid and very fast moving, okay, which is exciting overall. But at the same time, we have our will, which is that's supposed to be Mars, Mars direct Leo, okay, not Mar, okay. I left out the S. Then Mars is about our personal will, our inner masculine, which is more of the immature masculine, you can say that, right? It gets things done. It has its place in motivating us, getting us out of bed, right? Making sure that we don't laze around and just watch Netflix until 2-3 series and not get anything productively done, right? So our internal Mars energy gives us that drive. And then Leo is the sun. So it's more connected to our soul because that's where the origin is, right? So our sun, which is our soul, and then at the same time, our Mars, which is our personal will, is together now. So again, a lot of energy, right, in the masculine sense, right? But it has to crack through. It has to crack through the current reality because Mercury, okay, although it's a fresh sort of a energy, right, a part of the sign overall, it is in a place of Taurus, and Taurus is about the real world, right? Because it's related to senses overall. Our 5 senses, right, which pick up on reality overall, right, through all the 5 senses. So that is our day-to-day energy. It is picking up on the reality as we speak. But at the same time, it is also in the same energy as Uranus, which is related to Aquarius, related overall to the jumping quantum leapness of period 9 and beyond lah. Okay, so that ability to transcend, the ability to shift, which often comes from a sudden jolt, a sudden change. So Uranus planet does that, right? So it gives us a sudden shake, anchors down that energy so that we are not always stagnating, right? Suddenly there's a big jolt. So related to the energy of clash overall, right? And this is in the same area of the physical senses and physical reality. So that's why, in summary, right, because our personal will is now married and moving together with our soul, and it is undergoing or in a way activated with the change, sudden change energy of our current reality. So what it means, distilled, is that it is a time for us to sit with our current reality, right, and be able to know where is it that we have this so-called positive karma, and where is it that we have this final wisdom gain or lessons still stubbornly unlearned, and then we have to use that to measure, because we see it in our current reality, right? These transits tell us the same story. Then, of course, the most important thing is to then use this match or mismatch to your current reality to embark on changes, which is, of course, powered by Uranus as well. So it's still a time to change. Okay, until further notice, right? When Uranus goes to the next sign of Gemini, all possibilities open up, right? When we translate it back to where we are in terms of the season, it is in July. So I give you a little bit of a head start, right? But of course, because all the big planets, in fact, all the planets will shift to an exciting new sign, but they will also retrograde back to the previous sign. Of course, if you study those, you know that we are not completely done with straightforward forward energy until 2026. Everything tells the same story, and that's why it's so important to be fully prepared before we get to 2026. So a lot of exciting things coming up also to help us do that. They will be revealed as we go through. Yeah. Now, anchoring all of this. Now I say anchor means because this is the biggest foundational energy. Okay, that is the deepest and most strongest. Now those related, of course, number one, Saturn. Saturn is again crossing from midpoint of beyond personal energy into karmic energy already, right? Into longer term, because Saturn is always associated with things take energy to build, like a career, for example, long-term skill, right? A relationship over the decades, right? And so on. So Saturn is how we have to serve that obligation and the commitments. So that's why if we don't understand it fully, we'll always see it as a blockage, right? Or how come things that take a long time to develop, but it's actually just a commitment in a way. It's a commitment, and hence it becomes a responsibility. That's why it's long term. It takes work, it takes blood, sweat, and tears to work with Saturn, right? So that energy is the planet is going to move into the very exciting first sign of Aries. So a lot of it is about going to Aries, right? Moving from the last sign into the first sign, all matching the excitement of period 9 in a nutshell, right? If you don't want to get into too many technical details here. So that's now going to also go into Aries, which means that all these long-term commitments and so on, the obligations and the feeling of developing something over the long term is going to have a very exciting reboot when we go into the end of May this month. Okay, so that's why you will see that powering into June and then into July. Then, of course, we always have to keep it into perspective, but I'll keep that in the next slide to come, okay? Then the other one is, of course, Neptune and Aries, which since the end of March, which is about 1 month now, okay, 1 month, 1 day, it's gone into, again, a fresh new sign, and that's only happened, right, for the first time in 165 years, okay? So now, let's talk about the Saturn first. So Saturn, of course, is a smaller orbit. That's why it is outer of Jupiter's orbit, and it is the so-called, in terms of our real practical life, that's not entirely just purely about our meaning, our soul growth, our spirituality overall, right? So Saturn governs it. That's why it's the outermost in terms of our day-to-day life, and hence takes the most work, okay, overall. So that's why the orbit is only 30 years, okay? But because it goes into Aries, so it is signifying a new start. But of course, a new start in terms of what? Long-term things, commitments, right? Exercising our karma, okay? Having to work through our karma, that's all related to Saturn in a real world practical sense. And that's why transmuting our karma also helps us undergo or break through Saturn lessons overall, right? And the theme, of course, as it goes excitingly now towards the end of May, right, into a new sign, is now empowerment. Are we empowered? How much are we empowered? How much are we not yet empowered? And so on and so forth. But of course, with every yang comes a yin. The test of it, of course, is going to be selfishness, right? That means we can easily egoically, right, based on our ego, right, justify things that it is actually from an ego's perspective, and we're actually just taking care of our own ass, right, and not considering anything else or anyone else. So it can easily be justified, right? But the core, unfortunately, is based on selfishness. Okay, so that's the danger there, but overall the theme is that, right? So the measure of where you are soulfully and spiritually living is a percentage. It depends on how empowered are you. Okay, so that's also a note to myself. A big, okay. Remember that overall, yeah? And then, of course, Neptune. Now, Neptune is a bigger scale energy, and it is the furthest planet, okay, beyond, except for Pluto. Okay, and of course, a lot more planets outside there. So, and this is vast, much bigger compared to the so-called groundedness or earthliness of Saturn's influence, right? Neptune's orbit, 165 years, right? Which means that in each sign, it is 20 over years, right? Overall. Let's say 12 times. Yeah, it's 18 years overall. So that's why it transits only into a new sign not very often, right? And in this case, very excitingly so, at the end of March, it's moved into, again, a new start. The first sign of the Western zodiac, right? Now, of course, this means the rebirth here in terms of its theme, especially in terms of the embodied spirituality, which I talked about a lot already, right? The honoring of the spirit and the soul in our own unique ways, because Aries is individuated, right? That's why the danger there of selfishness, right? But our individuation is the key energy theme of Aries, of will, right? So that's why it is also very exciting that hopefully now we embody our spirituality overall, right? In a more authentic fashion. So, but having said that, just a quick wrap up to this section, right? When we have these very exciting new opportunities and phase of our life, right, that we've never had before, because this one, of course, is once in 150 years. If you count about each sign about 15 to 18 years, then it only goes back, right, to its full cycle every 150 years, right, which is beyond a normal physical earthly being lifespan for now, that is, yeah? So that's why we only see this once in our whole life. So whatever, no matter what age you are, this is finally the chance to be in this very exciting way where you can proudly be who you are spiritually and do the things that honor your soul without having to conform, right? And without any guilt, hopefully, and minimizing that, without any shame, and then best of all is without any way and place to hide, right? Because if we don't do it, then of course it will how to say, it will clash with our outer identity, for example. And if we honor it, then it's when we are able to craft the path very uniquely spiritually forward, right? As opposed to in the previous 15, 20 years, it's all about ideals. It's about the dream of basically being spiritual or trying to embody it in a way that is very woo-woo, but in a way that's very disconnected and unreal. And a lot of times it is why there was a lot more escapism and denial in the previous 15 years prior to period 9. Right? So this gives us the opportunity to be more authentic, in a way you can say that, right? But of course, bear in mind, both Neptune and also Saturn, Saturn will go into the exciting sign of Aries at the end of May, and then Neptune has already done that at the end of March. They will still retrograde back, right? Also very interesting because it's going to occur from September onwards, mainly in October, November, December, and hence we have then this backtrack where we anchor back down. Or in a not so positive sense, you have to be careful of being drawn back into your previous state, especially in the last quarter of this year, right? Where you were trapping yourself in hindering your own growth and so on and so forth. So that's a little bit of a, how to say, a advanced pre-warning to that, right? So we do not clear energies, right? And go deep or directly and full blast into the exciting horsegear type energies of being able to create magic if we're ready, or being able to quantum leap depending on our personal vibration and so on, until February onwards. So again, telling us the same story, all right? So more on that as we unveil and reveal the rest of the months to come. But for now, May is very, very opportunistic, okay? It is, of course, fresh out of a new embodied spirituality. So I hope you are able to, in your own way, honor this. If nothing has changed, if you feel that I'm fine, I'm well, that, just look deeper, okay? Or whether or not your spirit is being honored and whether it is actually still being limited, or worst case, trapped in your previous type of existence, right? Prior to 2024, especially. Then, of course, because as we lead into summer and fire gets stronger especially at the end of May, then it's always an opportunity for us to transform, right? So let the lessons and be distilled into clearer wisdom and clarity, right? So you can use that for the way that it is to transmute whatever that's not going well so far, right? So that it does not hinder the rest of your growth and progression for the rest of the year. So you got to transform those, right? It could be it could be a mindset, it could be an external habit, it could be a way of response that is, of course, wired back into its roots, why it became that way, and so on. It could be an interpersonal dynamic, it could be a person, it could be how you feel about one aspect of your life, one aspect of your energy overall, right? So transform that with the energy of fire. Then, of course, realign and take proactive action in terms of where is it that your current reality is telling you that if you want to go forward in a certain way, the current reality needs to change. You need to change something so that your future reality will able to better fit, honor, and also work with the new embodied spiritual self of yours. Okay, so May, very, very, very powerful for those endeavors. Okay, so that's the core of the technical part. I hope that is basically something that you're able to be cognizant of. Remember, whatever that we see in the external world, right? We use it as a guidance, and we use it as, okay, that's happening in the world, right? So for example, with the so-called trade wars that's going on at the moment, right? Trade war, right? US, China, and everyone who's involved with it. Yes, right, where we all need to benchmark to that. We all need to have that cognizance of it because it affects us in this big way and future way as well. And of course, within that, if you are in an industry and so on, market research is important for you, economics and so on, then you have even more our connection to that and the information to use in a perspective, right? But whatever it is, you distill it back down to yourself, because that's what these monthly forecasts are mainly aimed for. They're not to forecast the world, right? There are other methods to do that, which Jessie mostly shares, right? So those would be for that layer, but it's the same interpersonal dynamics, or rather the vibrational dynamics that I talked about, right? But don't forget to use the energy in your own personal way as well. So I urge you to do that, as opposed to just only being carried away, because yes, it's an important thing that's going out, and we need to know of it because it affects all of us in some way, right? Economically, which is a major way for all of us. But don't bypass the energies to use and work on yourself. So, for example, okay, let's get back to the cover page, please. When we are not cognizant, we are using the cuts, right? The trimming of the scissors to the yeet wood in an unbeknownst negative way. We will limit our own growth based on our unlearned lessons. But if we're using it positive way, we're shaping it, right? Like I said, we're cutting off maybe one branch to focus on another branch. Or maybe we're cutting off one branch so that a new branch can grow somewhere else that is more suited to what we will need in relation to where we want to go, right? So that's great. That part is great, but be cognizant of the part that is calling out for attention as well, right? So use the astrology energies in always correlate it back to you personally. Don't waste it. Okay, so hi to Amy, hi to William, good morning to you both. Right, of course, Sarah, Auckland as well. Yes, good morning. Thanks so much for tuning in, right? Let me just quickly check any comments here. No comments right here, so I just want to share with you, like I was saying, right? If you want to basically really connect with yourself so that then you are able to not only tune yourself, but enhance your own personal vibrational energy, right? Connecting to it through your voice is very important because the voice is your most personal, powerfully vibrational tool. Your most personal and most powerful vibrational tool is your own voice. It's not an external singing bowl. It's not a gong. It's not the music that you absorb from the environment, right? It's your own, right? So there are many ways that we can break through ourselves and be able to harness the power of own vocals, our vocalization, right? On a mundane way, it will be making you be a better speaker, be able to present better, right? Energetically, it is very profound, the process. And I find that I'm always very excited whenever I work one-on-one, okay? And in every lesson and in many moments throughout each lesson, there are those big moments where we just discover a layer, something. There's a lesson there about an energy. It could be an energy blockage. It could be a chakra issue. It could be the way people process information, right? Input, output, and so on and so forth. That is beyond just opening up the voice. But through the process of opening up the voice and learning how to use it better, right? All of this comes, right? So that's why, although the core of this one-on-one vocal package, right, is to open your voice and to activate it so that you get to unleash a more empowered voice, right? But at the same time, we discover those potential blockages, right? Or where is it that can be improved further? Where is it a vibration is lacking a little bit? And then overall, right, with breath work, with breathing techniques and so on, then we're just able to flow energy better overall throughout our physical and subtle body energy. So it's very exciting, right? So if you something that calls out to you, if this calls out to you and if you want to work with me, right? So this is what I have. It's a 4-session package at the moment that is still in the introductory rate because I feel that it is something that many people can benefit from, right? Call us, WhatsApp us, right? You know our standard number. If not, you can just give a scan here and arrange, right, for your personal one-on-one vocal coaching session, okay? And then very exciting as well, right? Because on the yang front, on the outer front, okay, it is how we capture all of this and be cognizant of what we need to know, lah, right, in terms of the economics of the world and how we relate to the economics of self. So, of course, you may already know this, and many of you have already signed up, right, that Jessie, in the weeks prior to this, right, of course, downloaded information, right, reconsidered certain things and so on, right, and quickly put this out there because she felt that it would really benefit people from the yang perspective, especially, right, in the economic perspective, the financial wealth perspective, to be fully prepared because we already see the repercussions of this year. Now, remember, repercussions, ups and downs, right? Whatever that's playing out in the world stage, politically and economically, yes, it will filter down to us. That's why we need to empower ourselves, right, with this information, for example, of the Elevate Your Wealth. At the same time, don't forget, while these changes are happening outwardly, right, they are also there internally as well. So do not waste it by just following whatever that's outside and not really paying attention to what you need personally. So they both have to occur at the same time, right? But for, of course, the external wealth safeguarding purposes, Elevate Your Wealth Masterclass, right, is being rebooted. And of course, if you're not aware already, the dates unfortunately had to be postponed because, you know, the Parts Practitioner Masterclass is still ongoing, right, spilling into this coming weekend. At the same time, of course, this will allow Jessie to curate even better workshop for all of us. Okay, so the new dates are 21st, 22nd, 23rd June, with the additional half day on 24th June. So I know many of you have already signed up for it. I think so far the response has been great, and it's great that you're taking power into your own hands in terms of elevating your wealth and doing all this precautionary adjustment stuff, right, in the snake year, right? So use the snake year for all of this. So if you have not signed up, please do sign up for this as well, happening, like I said, towards the end of the month, okay? So thank you so much, right? So the QR code was flashed up there, and of course we have the links put up in our pages as well, right, for you to check out, okay? And I hope you're able to, one, for your personal energy, and then one, of course, to safeguard your wealth, and also overall, right, in terms of the energy for the exciting year to come in 2026. Okay, so thank you so much for joining me live, giving a wrap to the official May Metal Snake forecast. If you've been live with me, I appreciate it. Those of you who dropped your comments as well. At the same time, have a very, very fruitful, productive yang and also yin metal snake month ahead. And of course, we'll catch up on other things. Make sure you constantly check. If you can, make sure you're a follower to the page as well, so that you are basically connected and you will be prompted every time something is posted on my page. And then, of course, you'll probably see it on your timeline as well. So make sure you follow my page, Kong Yu. Thanks so much. It's a wrap for the May forecast. A quick hello, and you're welcome to Francis, right, who managed to put in the last comment there, right? And all the best for the upcoming May month. Thank you so much. Take care. Bye-bye.